Hello, welcome to the Drop In with Debbie blog, April 2021. The title of this blog is Inclusivity, Beauty for All. Dear readers, when I share stories about my disability, I don't often talk about my angst when it comes to finding fashionable clothing. The first day I met Alex and Natalie, I was participating in an interactive podcast about the 30th anniversary of the American Disabilities Act in July 2020. As a viewer, and one who has been paralyzed for 3 decades, my heart soared with delight at this next generation of young people who understood so well the path we have come and the challenges before us. They spoke with intelligence, passion, and direction. I connected with each of them, and so this story began. In those early conversations, I was also introduced to another amazing woman, Alicia. Her story intersects with the others in ways that have yet to be told. I love that their paths are still unfolding. They are changing perceptions about beauty, fashion, and the way we present ourselves to the world. Months ago, I watched a video shared many times on Facebook. It was a young high school student's project. She was capturing what she saw as beautiful. It was people. She would tell them, "You are beautiful." The students and teachers she filmed were all different bodies, shapes, ages, races, and disabilities. Interestingly, the majority of folks videoed did not see themselves as beautiful. What message do we believe about ourselves and model for our children? Could we change that narrative? This entourage of women led the charge to see beauty in all our bodies. I look forward to introducing you to Alexandra, Alex, Connell Herold, age 32, Natalie Trevonne, age 29, and Alicia Searcy, age 59. You might argue that these women are not seniors, which is what I write about, and I hear you. However, their message is timeless and applicable for all of us. Let's start with Alicia, who lives in Nashville, Tennessee. Alicia was born with cerebral palsy. She has difficulty with fine motor skills, uses an electric wheelchair for long distances, and a walker when traveling short distances. Sometimes her body gives her spasms. Alicia's mom had been a fashion model. Alicia said, "She was always critical of my body." In reaction to her mother, Alicia didn't appreciate the fashion world and what clothing and style could do for her. "I gave up entirely for many years," she said. Reader, have you ever let someone define you? In those young years, Alicia recognized that when she was around other people, she was ignored, or people would talk about her, but not to her. "I was the handicapped person who was ignored," she said. Then, as she matured as a woman, she started watching other people and the way they interacted and presented themselves. Around that same time, she had to have some dental work done, and while healing, she said she would watch the television show, What Not to Wear. Folks, as a little aside, I love this show. When I first moved to Colorado, I had to deal with 3 surgeries, and I binge watched every season of the show. The premise is that people who don't know how to dress for their body types are given assistance in how to embrace themselves and dress more fashionably in the process. So while healing, Alicia too watched these episodes. "These ladies were being self-deprecating," she said of the show. "However, when they started dressing more intentionally, I noticed that their shortcomings didn't matter. The final outcome is what mattered. They were able to use their clothing when dealing with people around them." Alicia observed. What do your clothing say about you, reader? So about 15 years ago, Alicia started dressing with an eye for fashion. When she did, I noticed that people talked to me and engaged with me. I realized fashion is a communications tool, she said. So she began to fine-tune her sense of style. When the flood of 2010 washed through Nashville, all of Alicia's clothing were destroyed. "This gave me an opportunity to replace my clothing, and this time I did it with intention," she said. Going forward, her fashion interest continued to grow. Around this time, she mentioned to a friend, "I wish there was a store where everyone could shop, all sizes, shapes, and people with disabilities." When she was younger, Alicia would attend fashion shows with her mother, but the models and clothing were sample sizes and did not reflect the average body. Alicia began to imagine what it would be like to hold a fashion show that modeled inclusivity. However, for the next few years, that thought stayed on her mind on a shelf of dreams. Are you holding a dream, reader? Alicia did, however, become a blogger. She is the author of Spassionista. The title was a play of her body's spasms and fashion. She felt it was important to communicate the value of every one and every body type. Fashion, she realized, could change the way people perceived me, she said, and she wanted to open that dialogue with her readers. We all get our inspiration from different places. Remember the idea Alicia shared with her friend, inclusivity and shopping options? With her blog, she continued those conversations. Then in 2016, David Bowie died. For Alicia, his death touched a nerve and ignited that spark. Alicia said, David Bowie was the champion for the people who don't belong or are marginalized. His death, that finality of his life, inspired her to say to herself about her dream, if not now, when? Where do you draw your inspiration, reader? By 2017, Alicia organized a self-funded fashion show. She and her handful of volunteers committed to celebrating local designers and to dress different sizes, ages, and shapes. They wanted models from all walks of life to reflect that as well. The designers were friends of hers. That first year, the caterer ran off with their money, so they had no food. However, designers did their job. Each made a few pieces, and they sold out to a full house of 120 people. The designers had tremendous success in selling their clothing, and the feedback was excellent. Everyone wanted to know when the next fashion show would be held. This small band of volunteers organized and named themselves Fashion is for Everybody. By the end of that year, they had received their 501c3 nonprofit status. The Kimmy Jones Award was created and given to one designer a year to create an adaptive clothing pattern. It recognized the transformative power of fashion. Alicia said the designers who won the award is given the opportunity to have their pattern available for custom order in a range of sizes, which offers people with disabilities fashionable clothing options. Kimmy was a key supporter of Alicia's dream. She was born with muscular dystrophy, was a founding member of Fashion is for Everybody, and Kimmy modeled in the inaugural runway show. Kimmy passed away in 2017, but the group continues to honor her legacy through this award. Annually, the shows are a major undertaking. Alicia now has 4 full-time and 5 part-time volunteers. As well, there are at least 4 designers and 30 models per show. On the day of the fashion show and photo shoots, there are more than 100 volunteers. The shows are catered and ticket sales have more than doubled. Living in Nashville, the local designers for the show have created garments for people such as Loretta Lynn, Elton John, and Beyonce. Staying true to the mission of inclusivity, the models represent all body shapes. There is nothing like being a model on the runway, Alicia said. It makes you feel beautiful and confident. The progressive designers also get recognition. On the day of the show, they have a pop-up shop, meaning they create a space where they can sell their items right off the runway. Alicia said that every year the designers have made a profit. I want to stop reading here for a moment because I have some exciting breaking news. During the time that I was interviewing Alicia in the midst of the shutdown with the pandemic, it didn't look like we were going to have a runway show that year. But things have changed, and here is an announcement that Alicia recently sent. Teaming with PattyandRicky.com, we're excited to announce Fashion is for Everybody will be back on the runway for our 5th fashion show on Saturday, September 11th at Studio 615. This year promises to be unlike any other, with some pretty terrific surprises that will break new ground in the movement to normalize inclusion in fashion and in life. So back to the blog. It's not a surprise that Alicia would soon cross paths with Alex Connell Herold. Alex is the CEO and founder of Patty and Ricky, an exclusive online fashion retailer. Alex launched the business 4 years ago. Over the years, Alex had been diagnosed with ADD, dyslexia, anxiety, and POTS, which is a condition that affects the body's circulation and blood flow. An early influencer for Alex was her cousin Ricky. He was born with neurotypical seizures, and he was not able to walk or talk. He used a wheelchair. He showed me he could get where he needed to go, and his wheelchair could be a fashion accessory, Alex said. Fashion was a part of her life, because both of her parents were in the New York fashion industry, and they became entrepreneurs. One year, her young cousin Ricky gifted Alex with an American Girl doll. It was unique from all her friends because this American Girl doll used a wheelchair. It opened up a lot of teachable moments with her friends about disabilities, Alex said. Are you comfortable with people who don't look or think the way you do, reader? As Alex grew into adulthood, she continued to be passionate about disability rights. She attended Columbus University Teachers College. She received a degree in teaching with a specialization in disability studies. By the time Alex was 19, her parents had divorced, and her mom, Patty, was diagnosed with brain cancer. Alex moved home to become her mom's caretaker. One of the first things Alex did was to make the home accessible. She was always my caretaker, and then I became hers, she said of her mom. It was important to Alex to help her mom, Patty, feel good about herself during this difficult time. Patty asked if Alex would find a leopard print cane to help her walk. Alex said she looked everywhere, but could not find what her mom had requested. She found one that was pink, with roses on it, and she had to order it from a medical store instead of a place that recognized fashion. Alex said that she watched how people treated her mom as her body weakened. People treated her like a baby with her bald head and weak body. When she was dressed fashionable, I saw the power. She was treated like an adult. Alex's mom passed away in 2007. All of these experiences thus far inspired in Alex a desire to have a career that improved the lives of people with disabilities. In 2015, she moved to Denver, Colorado. Her plan was to continue her research about how to start a nonprofit that served people with disabilities. However, in her research and with her background in the fashion world, she found herself drawn toward a business that would marry stylish and functional fashion for all body types. This was a huge undertaking to get a designer to create clothing that was adaptable. Her husband Alex said that Alex would have to call many would ha- I'm sorry. Her husband said that Alex would have to call 100 designers to get one yes. As I've gotten to know Alex, I find her to be smart, energetic, determined woman with a lovely infectious delight in her dream. Now she had to convince designers to believe in her dream too. Alex started making phone calls about her desire to work with those who would create inclusive clothing. Initially, 12 designers said yes. Are you making your dreams come true, reader? By 2017, Alex launched Patty and Ricky, her online retail store. The company was named after her mom and her cousin. Alex is the sole full-time employee. Her business catapulted to include more than 100 designers. Most have a disability or have a loved one who is disabled, or they may be in the medical profession. Each designer is sensitive to all disabilities. As an example, on the website, you may find braille jewelry, clothing using Velcro or snaps, garments that work well for people who sit in a wheelchair or have Parkinson's. It also includes a sensitivity to seniors who may not find it more difficult as they age to put on or take off their clothing. It was important to Alex to have clothing to be something that universally everyone could wear. She wanted clothing that just made sense, fashionable and functional, she said. As Alex grew her business, the fashion industry noticed. The company, Patty and Ricky, have been recognized on the Today Show, Forbes, Huffington Post, Parent Magazine, and the New York Times. Her dream is to have Patty and Ricky adaptive wear in department stores. She wants to see wide aisles, and braille labels on tags. I want it to be a fun, stress-free shopping experience for everyone, she said. However, one of the challenges Alex faces is that Facebook and Instagram algorithms are designed to understand fashion as one category and medical equipment as another. So, for example, if you have an image of a model in a wheelchair showing adaptive fashion, the picture will get flagged as a medical device. She spends months fighting Facebook with its algorithms that flag her products as policy violations because it is not understood that her products are fashion. The appeal process exhausts Alex. Quoted in a New York Times interview, Alex said, "How can we educate the world that adaptive clothes, not to mention the people who wear them, are a fundamental part of fashion when I'm having to constantly petition to get them seen?" The problem is not just about algorithms. It's about the ability for all designers to move toward clothing and marketing campaigns that emphasize the beauty and importance of people with disabilities. Right now, Facebook's current algorithm would reject those models. So, why would a company hire a model in a wheelchair? If a company plans a marketing campaign and their model with a disability means the company ends up in a Facebook dispute, that is time and money for that company. However, Alex is committed to providing work authenticity to models with disability. Therefore, her algorithm battle continues. A unique offer from Patty and Ricky is their regular online conversations with people who have disabilities and those in the fashion world. The live events on Facebook and Instagram are informative and bring together a wonderful group of people who care about the universal approach to fashion. Alex also works closely with some who are called influencers. Now, for those of you who are a certain age, that may be a new term. Actually, the word influencer has been a concept since medieval times. Royalty gathered people around them who would influence or affect the beliefs of the kingdom's subjects. Today, it is often thought of as a person who has a social media presence and followers want to engage with or hear their thoughts. Alex brings together influencers who love fashion and represent the Patty and Ricky mission. Zion Horn, who is a public speaker and teacher, as well as a blogger and knowledgeable about the fashion world in her own right, introduced Alex to Natalie Trevonne. Many know Natalie as a model, actress, songwriter, and dancer. As well, she co-hosts her own podcast. Let's delve into her story. Natalie is known for her work in the fashion and entertainment industry. She is also an advocate for people with disabilities in her field. Actually, anywhere, Natalie cares and she understands a disability firsthand. Natalie is blind. Alex said about Natalie that when the two met, there was an instant communication. I love that she is educating people and she is a fashionista. She's incredible, Alex said. They have worked together now for over a year. The common goal is their understanding about clothing that universally works for everyone. Alex said, we have a shared passion for adaptive fashion. Natalie has a genuine connection to people. Natalie was born with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. She was diagnosed when she was 1 year old. The doctors told her family that it would affect her organs, but they could not predict if or when. It's not a hereditary disease, Alex explained. Her siblings do not have it. It's just a freak thing that happened, she said. Natalie grew up in the suburbs of West Covina, California, about 45 minutes from Los Angeles. She remembers a very active childhood. She rode her bike and scooter, she played outdoors a lot, and enjoyed painting rocks with her friends. There was always dancing and singing. With her cousins, they created and acted in many performances for their family. As predicted by the doctors, age 11, Natalie's eyes were the organ affected by the disease. It started with cataracts and her sight diminished. For 8 years, Natalie endured 10 different surgeries to repair the damage. Her sight would return, only to decline again. Natalie's teenage years were especially difficult. She would have times when she had clear eyesight. Then, when the cataracts returned, it meant more surgeries. She said, there were a lot of changes with my vision. Natalie told me that she made a conscious decision to stay active. She was a cheerleader on the dance team and was part of a singing choir similar to what we see on the television show Glee. I tried to turn a negative into a positive, she said. However, children are not often taught how to communicate with someone who has a disability. Many of her fellow classmates were unkind to Natalie. She said, they said mean things about me and made fun of my eyesight. They made fun of me for being blind. What do you do, reader, to diminish bullying in your neighborhood? A story that exemplifies this was when Natalie was 16-year-old sophomore and a cheerleader. Her coach required the cheerleaders to run before practice. On the days when her inflammation was at its worst, Natalie could not run. One day, a fellow cheerleader was angry that Natalie was not required to participate with the running. He questioned her. Natalie tried to explain, I have a disease, and it's painful for me on some days to run. Instead of understanding, this classmate talked to some of the other cheerleaders. They started to mock her disease and her blindness. Natalie said she stopped cheerleading because the mockery was too devastating. She said she started to struggle with her own perceptions of herself. My eyes were changing. I was thinking I looked like I had a disease. Has someone ever made fun of you, reader? By the age of 18, Natalie had total blindness. She's very close to her mom and said of their relationship, if she was sad about my blindness, she didn't show me. My mom is very motivating, always pushing me forward. She is strong and level headed. Natalie recognized that she needed to be strong in herself to live this next stage of her life. She said that she began to trust in God, that He could created me, and that I had to push forward in the midst of opposition. What is your inward dialogue, reader? Natalie attended California State Polytechnic University, better known as Cal Poly. She graduated in 2013 with a communications major. The next year, she completed an internship with Wayfinders Family Service. At that time, it was an organization that enhanced the lives of people who were blind. Now its focus is on multiple disabilities. While there, Natalie worked closely with the president in marketing. Later that year, she also did public relations intern with the Grammy Museum in downtown Los Angeles. In 2016, she interned with one of Katy Perry's background singers, Lauren Ball. She helped pitch her music, social media, and other public relations events. Then in 2017, Natalie said that she purposely started to place herself in performing roles. I had to put myself in front of people, she said. Natalie got an agent. She also started acting and dancing. She was doing ballroom, hip hop, contemporary dances. As well, she became a guest dancer with the Infinite Flow Dance Company. Natalie said, we are like family. She explained Infinite Flow feeds the mission of her life. For her, this means to be inclusive in all walks of life, including entertainment and media. Presently, she is still a guest dancer, but the programs are on hiatus because of COVID-19. By 2018, Natalie also started modeling. I need to get back to what I love, she said. Her choices paid off when she modeled for Aetna, a health insurance company's advertisement. The next year, she was back at work with the dance company and she began preparations for her second play, Blind Talent. She also entered a modeling contest held in Washington, D.C. She came in third place, which awarded her a photo shoot in New York City. She continued to grow in her own self awareness. My disability is not me, she said. My blindness doesn't define how I look. I can still be beautiful and talented. Others also recognized her beauty and talent. 2019 was a busy year. She modeled for promotional material for the vacation rental company Airbnb Incorporated. Natalie also worked with Whitney Davis, a former executive with CBS. Whitney wrote a letter that was published in Variety. The letter focused on promoting diversity in Hollywood. This generated a lot of speaking engagements, and Natalie was hired as the communications coordinator. As well, Natalie was accepted into the Respectability Lab program for entertainment professionals with disabilities. This was a 5-week program that allowed her to network with executives from television and films such as Sundance, Disney, NBC, and others. With her new insights, Natalie became a diversity and inclusive consultant. It was an initiative started by Whitney Davis, the former CBS executive. This allowed Natalie to reintroduce herself to companies she had met during the Respectability Lab program. She was invited to give presentations about the benefits of hiring people who are blind or with low vision. This work will resume after the pandemic season allows business to open more fully again. Last year, 2020, Natalie was accepted by the first Academy of Blind Actors sponsored by Apple TV Network. She received professional training that included technical, body, and voice coaching. This allowed her to perform for industry executives in entertainment and films. She also performed in her long-awaited play, Blind Talent. Then Natalie moved to New York City. She began working with Lissa Lowe. Between the two, they created their new podcast, Fashionably Tardy. The conversation bridges the gap between those with disability and the fashion industry. Readers, I listen to it, and I learn much more than just fashion. The common denominator for us are the guest stories about their lives, struggles, and successes. For practical reasons, in June of 2020, Natalie moved back to her home in California. She said it was very difficult finding a permanent place to live in New York City during a pandemic. However, her work didn't stop. She was one of the spokespersons for 250 attendees for a panel about Black entertainers. The next month, she was hired to do a commercial shoot for Cow Fresh Foods. They had to wear masks, social distancing, and get tested. But I was so grateful to be able to work, she said. As well, she was able to be an influencer for Patty and Ricky, Alex's online retail store that hosts adaptive clothing choices. I watched her first introduction with the company during an online panel discussion. As an influencer, Natalie models and creates content for the Patty and Ricky website. Last year was the 30th anniversary of the Americans Disability Act. Natalie was featured with the Voices of Disability ADA 30th celebration. In my continual communication with Natalie, I watched her work on one of her favorite pastimes, songwriting and singing. I'm sure we will see more of her talent displayed in the future. Interest in her talents continues to grow. For example, she was recently featured in a 2021 commercial that was aired during this year's Super Bowl. I started this blog justifying why these three women deserved a spot in the Drop In with Debbie blog. They are all working toward businesses that are more inclusive for everyone. People with disabilities and seniors, as well as women of all sizes, will benefit from the exciting work accomplished by Alicia, Alex, and Natalie. I am honored to have gotten to know them. I look forward to how their creations benefit my life, that of this 63-year-old woman who sits in a wheelchair. Music mogul Quincy Jones once said, "Not one drop of my self-worth depends on your acceptance of me." Thank you, Alicia, Alex, and Natalie, for not only taking up the torch, but expanding our understanding of how to accept ourselves and each other. Readers, how will you show acceptance to yourself and to others? Thank you.